This is Pixelated Audio, episode 142, covering the music of Xixit.
Welcome back to Pixelated Audio, a podcast focusing on game audio, its history, and the people behind it. We're your hosts. I'm Brian, and this is Gene.
Hey, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about and playing music from the game Xixit for DOS. That's Xixit, so pronounce that how you like. We settled on Xixit. Maybe it's Xixit. Who knows?
We had to really sit and think hard about that because, honestly, in the 90s, anytime you could add more X's to something, just made it that much cooler. So there might not even be a way to say it. Who knows? But yeah, the soundtracks can be a lot of fun to listen to. That first track that we came in is fitting. It's called Exuding Titleness. And that was composed by Andrew Sega, also known as Necros. And this is a really smooth track. Kind of gets you into this kind of watery kind of feeling. The game has nothing to do with water, but it's got this nice kind of flow to it.
It's an absolutely beautiful tune. I love listening to it. Every time you open up the game, it opens with this. I mean, obviously, it's called Exuding Titleness. Bit of a cheeky name, but it's very much intended for this purpose, and it fits so perfectly. Right.
So, like Gene mentioned earlier on in the show that the game is for DOS, and you would expect, maybe some Sound Blaster 16 music or something like that. But no, this is actually all mod files. This is all using Scream Tracker 3, and there's a lot of crossover between this soundtrack and my other podcast that I do with Ed called Impulse Project. We're currently on hiatus, but we'll get back into it eventually. Anyways, so this Scream Tracker 3 file is not playing through like the Sound Blaster. This is, playing through just playing samples. There are 6 channels, and it's got just a really nice flow that I really like. In the file here, it says for Tom Patel and his ragtag band of merry men, 1995 Necros FM. And I believe FM is 5 musicians group. Really? Is that 5 musicians group? Oh, let me check on that.
Yeah, you'll have to tell me.
It is. Oh man. Okay, so 5 musicians. Can I go on a tangent here?
Yeah, go ahead. We're going to go on this tangent with you, Brian.
Okay, so the 5 musicians was a demo group that was really, really old. It was active between like 95 and 2001, I think, something like that. But it was crazy because what they would do is they would only allow 5 people in the group at one time. And so they were super like conservative with who they would let in. And because of that, they had just really high quality music and was just a huge influential group. And basically like Euro and Tell, there's Zodiac, Purple Motion was in it at one point, but like the big names.
Yeah, these are the bosses of the demo scene. You got to beat them in order to join the group.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. But yeah, I mean, 5 musicians, just a big time group, and we don't hear about them so much, maybe because there wasn't so much like programming as there was just really high quality music, but very cool.
Yeah, so I actually don't know as much about the demo scene. It's a scene that's always fascinated me, and I kind of look back on it longingly because it was sort of like a different time and a place that was just a little bit before my time, and I really wish I was there. I kind of caught the very, very tail end of it when the demo scene was kind of waning, when MP3s were starting to take off, but it's still still a really cool source of music today, and a lot of it's been archived, which is awesome. But anyway,
if you haven't heard of the demo scene, I can't imagine you wouldn't have listened to the show because we've played other stuff. But anyways, if you want to listen to more demo scene stuff, all of our Impulse Project episodes are still available, so you really should check that out. There's a lot of really great music.
Yeah. I agree. It's a wonderful podcast, and I hope you and Ed pick it back up sometime.
We were. There were some personal reasons why we had to just kind of put it on hold for a little bit, but it'll come back.
For sure. So let's breeze through this company info because there's not that much that I was able to find. So Xixit was released for DOS in 1995 by Optik Software. I'm not sure if they were a developer or a publisher. All the credits seemed like just published titles, but they were based in Pennsylvania, and they published 3 games. Xixit, Igor, Objective Ecohania, which was by Pendulo Studios, which is better known for their work on the Runaway series, the point-and-click adventure games. This is basically like a rip version of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, so just look at some screenshots, pretty funny. And also War Inc., which I think is their most well-known game, and that was developed by Interactive Magic,
That's the only one I know.
Yeah, I don't know this one too well. I just looked at their credits, and they have a long list of war games, strategy games, military simulations, you name it, that kind of thing.
Right.
That's it. That's Optik Software.
Yep.
Yeah, but this game in particular, Xixit, had 2 main designers and developers. There were 4 composers, but the people in charge of actually the game and the gameplay were John Hood, or Oman, I guess this is his demo scene handle. He handled art and design. And his main credits that you'd recognize were he's done CG graphics for Oddworld Stranger's Wrath back in 2005. And earlier, he did Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver 1 and 2. And he did concept art and animation for those games. So,
wow.
Definitely art and animation is where this guy lives. And on the programming side, we have Thomas Pytel, or Tomaz Pytel, who also goes by Tran. And his main credits that he's notable for are probably Zone 66, which is another DOS game from around this time, and Chain Reaction, which is another DOS puzzle game from around this time.
Right. And it looks like he was part of like Renaissance demo group as well. I'm not too sure. I'm looking at his Demo Zoo stuff, but I don't see anything that I really notice on here. Have you heard of Thomas Pytel at all?
I have not. And by the way, we haven't mentioned it yet, but this is just a Columns clone. It's a 3-block puzzler. It's like a really, really simple game.
Man, you just spoiled the surprise.
The surprise, yeah. I'm going to have to wait 45 minutes before we tell people that.
We're like 10 minutes into the show already, and people are like, what game are they even talking about? Like, what's the next one? Anyways, so you talked about programming, art design. The composers we have listed, there's more than the actual designer and programmer. You mentioned there's 4. There's Andrew Sega, who goes by Necros. That's a sweet last name. I really wish I had that last name. And then there's John Dahl Chris Bjornsson, who also goes by Mesonyx. And then Kenny Chow, which is C.C.Catch in the demo scene. And then Andrew Wise, who also goes by Nemesis. So again, everybody involved in this game, in this project, is a senior or an ex-senior. Actually, this was 95, so they're all seniors at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're all ex-seniors these days, although I know a couple of them have some more recent credits, like in the 2010s. So they're not totally retired, but still, it's a long time ago.
Anyways, let's get into our next track here. This is music number 1, composed by John Dahlquist Bjornsson.
That was music number 1, composed by John Dahlquist Bjornsson, aka Mesonyx. Oh man, I love this track. It's so simple but so effective.
I was gonna say that. I was gonna say, it's a really simple track, but it's just really nice to listen to. I like some of the samples in there. It's really clean. Then that trumpet comes in, which is a little bit weird, but yeah. I really think that even though it has a kind of like a repetitive feel, I mean, it's repetitive the whole way through. It's got that that kind of arp in the background, and not like a really strong bass or super strong melody. It just kind of ties together real well, and it's just enjoyable to listen to.
Yeah, I was thinking about this as we were listening to it. Like for a puzzle game where you don't want to get super distracted, I think it fits really well because there's like usually maybe one major element that's coming out at any given time, the melody, which is, traded off by the different instruments.
Absolutely.
But it's also a 4-channel mod file, so it's like really compact. There's a lot packed in there, but in terms of just keeping your attention on just the main thing, I think it's a really great accompaniment for the gameplay.
No, I completely agree with you. I think that having something like even like Tetris or something like that, not having something that's too distracting from the gameplay, but it's also kind of like, keeps this kind of fresh pace as the new melody line comes in or those new instruments come in. That's totally awesome. It totally works.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So as we mentioned earlier, Xixit is a classic columns clone. I don't know why I wrote that as alliterative in my notes, but anyway, different colored gems fall down the screen in groups of 3, and your goal is to match 3 or more of the same color in a row, either horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. After you clear a certain number of blocks, they start to fall faster until you lose, or maybe there's some upper ceiling where you get a windscreen. I've never been very great at columns, so I've never seen it, but maybe it exists.
I love the game, but I'm not that great at it either. So.
Yeah, I've never been good at any columns clone, but the game is really straightforward. There's 2 modes. There's a 1-player mode where you just play for score, and a 2-player versus mode, which is like any other 2-player puzzle versus mode, where if you're doing well enough, you send garbage blocks over to your opponent and they have to contend with those. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same 1-player or 2-player. Yeah, did you play this, Brian, at all?
I did. In fact, last night I was playing it just to try it out. Actually, I wasn't expecting much. I was like, okay, I'll just play it. And then I got hooked. In fact,
yeah, same here.
Yeah, I got hooked and I couldn't, you get captivated. I don't know what it is with columns, but I'm not like a huge columns fan, but whenever I start playing, it's like I'll just keep going with it. And I've always find it really enjoyable. And the game plays it's really, really smooth. It doesn't feel like a game that was, from 1995. It really does feel like, like a modern mobile game. You know what I mean? Like as far as like fluidity and gameplay go. For sure.
Yeah. It's got a tiny bit of that DOS funkiness when like your block is about to hit the bottom. There's not quite enough of a buffer like usually in the puzzle games. There's like a half second where you can like,
kind of move it around,
flip the block a little bit or change the rotation. But here it's just like once it hits, it's done on the next block.
That's a Tetris strategy, man. You're thinking that's a wrong game. Anyway,
you can do it in columns. I think.
Yeah, true.
But anyway,
I think so.
It's a really well-made game. I mean, it's simple. It's a block game. But what I was actually most impressed with was, these are a bunch of demoscene folks, including the main programmer. So that's a really highly configurable game. So the options menu is actually more robust than you would expect. There's a difficulty option, which actually changes how many colored blocks you have to deal with at a time. So on easy mode, there's only 4 colors that you can switch between, then 5 on normal and 6 on hard, which, doesn't sound like much, but you're waiting for that blue block and it's just not coming up, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. I didn't realize that there were different modes until after I had already stopped playing. And then I can't imagine. I think I was on easy, just like the regular one. Does it default to easy?
I think it defaults to normal, which is 5 colors, which is, it's a good challenge. But yeah, the 6 usually adds, or hard mode adds like, I think a black gem or something like that. But anyway, moving on, there's a couple of other options that are kind of cool. You can change your starting speed, which is pretty common, all the way from 1 to 10. Although that's not the maximum. You can start at 10, and if you're really good, it keeps going up from there. I got up to 12, I think, which is not really that good. That's like only 2 clears of like 40 blocks or 50 blocks. You nice. Can enable or disable the playfield for the background animations. They have like these kind of swiping, what do you even call them? Like swirls and flame effects. Which
just different, like basically a laser light show in the background,
Yeah, so. And the most interesting thing is they have the ability to change your block tile set. So there's, I think, 10 or 11 different ones. The default one is different gems that are shaped different things, kind of like in columns, like a diamond or a square, a circle. Then there's like a set of die. There's all circular gems, just different colors. There's
basically
blocks.
like Puyo.
Yeah, exactly. They're almost like accessibility options, but I don't know how much they thought about it. There are some really cool ones that animate while they're falling, but that's got to be super distracting. Like,
oh man, yeah,
lightning bolts are flaring across the block. But it's really cool. It looks great, and for a game as simple as it is, these are definitely options that are showing like going above and beyond and what could be done.
Right. Yeah. If you're curious about the game at all, go to our website right now. In our show notes, we will have a link. It plays beautifully on archive.org through their DOS box emulation. So go there, click the link, and start playing. It's a ton of fun. You'll enjoy it.
Exactly. And most importantly is you can actually choose your background music. So there's a total of 7 tracks in the game. You can't pick that beautiful track that we came in on, but you can pick every one of the other tracks. So the one we just finished listening to and the ones we're going to be talking about for the rest of the show.
Yeah. So that's a good segue into our next track here. So we started with music 1. Let's move on to music 2. And this is also composed by John Dahl Christbjornsson.
That was music number 2, composed by John Dahl Christbjornsson, aka Mesonyx.
This is another simple one that has a lot of pep to it. I like it.
I don't like this one as much. I would venture to say this is probably my least favorite track in the game, but it's still got a nice little, yeah, you're right, peppiness, poppiness. It's fun. Well,
I think kind of going back to what you were saying on the first one, I think it fits the mold for a Columns clone. And that's what I was trying to think like more along the lines of really does it fit the game? And I think it does. I think it has that bounciness to it, kind of that playful, like almost like things are kind of ricocheting off of each other. And that's how that that looks when you're playing, columns, like things bouncing around or, well, kind of dropping, and when you get different sequences and different scores. So I think it works. I would say that I almost like this one better than the last one.
And, well, actually, I can see how that is in context to the gameplay. And in fact, I will give this one credit for being really bouncy, a lot of short attack, very, like, a lot of the other tracks on the soundtrack are really good, very airy, almost like more atmospheric. Whereas, I've played a lot of puzzle games where they just have like bubbly, poppy, very upbeat sort of music, and this definitely is more in that style than in like sweeping orchestral stuff.
I'm thinking like Puzzle Bopper right now in my head.
It's a lot more in that style than like undersea simulators or whatever.
Yeah. And one thing I want to bring up here actually about the instruments here, and I noticed this in the last track, maybe we'll see it for the following track, but there is a sample in here called Pizza. I'm not exactly sure what that is supposed to mean. It looks like he finished this July 9th of 1995 around 6 in the evening. But yeah, I see pizza in every one of his samples. And so, do you want to listen to the sample real quick? What do you think a pizza sounds like?
I don't know. I had to think about that, but maybe a sizzle.
Yeah, I wonder. Hold on.
Oh, I got it. It's pizzicato, not pizza.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like a plucked string.
Oh, so I had no idea what it was going to sound like. Oh, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, it does now, but it's actually not spelled that way. So when I saw that, I'm like, pizza?
Dude, it's spelled pizza.
Oh, I know, but I mean, like the word pizzicato is spelled pizzi.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how it's actually spelled, but seeing it, my brain has made the connection now. So
that makes
pizzicato.
Sense. Well, it's the only one in here because like everything's like snare, flute, mix, reverb, mono bass, pizza.
Anyways, that's about it for that track.
Yeah, let's move into Music 3, also composed by John Dahl, Chris Bjornson.
That was music number 3, composed by John Dahlquist Bjornson, aka Mesonyx, for Xixit.
There's nothing really outstanding about this track, but just like the other two, I think it does fit the bill real well, and it's fun to listen to. There's a lot of really fun samples, and it's just mellow, and doesn't really kind of go out of its way to do anything overly, crazy in the track.
Does feature that pizza sample again, though. So
yeah, it does. It does. Really likes that.
Of course. And actually, I don't know if you caught this, but the third melodic sample was definitely the one that was used in Zool or Zool 2. I'm trying to remember which one. It's that kind of like...
Is it Peck?
Maybe. I don't know the name of this sample.
I think that's the one I was thinking of too. So Peck, it sounds like this.
Yes, that is the one, Peck. I know. I heard that.
I
one
heard
in
that,
Zool.
and I was like, man, that's got to be it. Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's honestly a fun set of tracks, and all three of them were done by John Dahlquist Bjornson. They're all 4-channel mod files or Scream Tracker files. This whole soundtrack is like 600 kilobytes, so it's I guess it's not that impressive anymore, but I thought it was kind of cool.
It's all 8-bit samples, so I mean,
yeah, that's true.
They're relatively small. Let's talk about the composers a little bit before we get into more music. Starting off with Necros, Andrew Sega. So he's an interesting dude. I mean, he got a start early on in the scene, in kind of the early 90s, and then later on in his career, he started making music for games, beginning with stuff like The Pursuit of Greed, Iron Seed, and Xixit, and then moving on to Origin Systems, doing the Crusader series. And then later on, he was a founding member of the video game music production company Straylight Productions, contributing tracks to the first-person shooter Unreal and Unreal Tournament. And then after that, he joined Digital Anvil, which is now a part of Microsoft Game Studios, and worked as a programmer and a musician doing freelance. He last was running a record label called Diffusion Records. I went to the website and it took me to something that's not appropriate to talk about on this podcast. So I think that there, like something, it's either just way expired or whatever, but that was around like 2001, maybe a little bit later on. But he was also in a synth pop group called Iris. So he's kind of got around.
Yeah, I know him probably best from his work on Unreal and Unreal Tournament, and I actually looked up Straylight because I knew that name was really familiar, and they worked on Deus Ex. He didn't work on that game, but the company did, because I knew a really major game had...
Do you know who else was in Straylight Productions?
I don't, actually. I feel like I've seen the name Necros and Andrew Sega pop up in a few other places, but I can't really picture where right now. But,
okay, it's Alexander Brandon, Andrew Sega. You're thinking of Alexander
Brandon, yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
and then there's Dan Gardopi, who's also...
Don't know that name.
In there, yeah. Yep.
But moving on to the next artist, the one we've been listening to for a while, Mesonyx, a.k.a. John Dahl Chris Bjornsson. I actually couldn't find a lot of credits for him in terms of games. His most notable credit that I could find is that he did a track for a game called Acid Tetris. He seems to love contributing music to puzzle games, but even his demo zoo page, I only found a few demos from 96 to 98, so he's certainly not the most active in the scene. I'm sure he's gone on to do other similar kinds of things, music and programming, but unless you got more on him, that's as much as I was able to find.
I mean, he's from Iceland, so...
Yeah, okay. Most of these other guys are actually American, so that's a good thing that you brought that up.
True. And there's also not a lot of, I'm going to go out and say it, there's not a lot of Icelandic singers. There's not.
There's not a lot of Icelandic people.
Yeah. I know one engineer at my work, and that's about it. But anyways, not a lot of singers from Iceland. But moving on to the next is Kenny Chow, or Kenny Cho. Not sure how to pronounce that. He spells it two different ways, so not exactly sure, but it goes by the handle C.C.Catch. And notable credits: One Must Fall 2097, which was released in 1994, and then Zone 66, which was released in 1993. And you said you played Zone 66, right?
I did. It's an 8-way top-down shmup kind of thing. It's like a cross between a 4X style game and a shooter, so you can move around the map, and different objectives and enemies kind of spawn off screen, and you chase after them.
It looks really cool. It looks really cool. It is
really cool, yeah.
Yeah, and it reminds me of Choplifter, in just not necessarily in Choplifter the game, but the mechanics of being able to move around kind of the plane of the plane, as in the dimension, and then shoot the enemies at the kind of at the base level. So kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, and I hope we have a chance to cover Zone 66, because that has a really cool soundtrack. It's got almost an entirely different soundtrack for Sound Blaster FM and MIDI SC55, that kind of thing. Maybe
we'll just have to do it in the next few weeks. I don't know.
Maybe. There's a lot of music there, but we'll have to kind of cover the hits. And I actually really like One Must Fall 2097. It's super indulgent early 90s Euro dance kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nostalgic for me. So I played that game a little bit, but for what it is, it's a really good soundtrack. And actually, there's only one track by Kenny Cho in this one, but if you like his music, you should definitely check out those games.
Yeah, we'll let you know when we get to it. But
yeah.
He was active in the demo scene from 92 to about 96, and he's done a few different demos in recent years, including one in 2018. Other than that, not a whole lot. He's a member of ICE and Renaissance.
Now, Renaissance, that's I feel like that's a popular demo group. I mean, it's a common word, but I feel like I've heard the name of that group come up a few times.
It's an American demo group. So it was founded by C.C.Catch, or, Kenny Chow. So I'm one of them. Daredevil, Leviathan was in there. We've talked about him on Impulse Project. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a super, popular group. I didn't really know a whole lot about them other than they were Americans, and like when I was listening to early demo scene stuff, there wasn't many of them. So that's all I know about him. So
makes sense. And moving on to our last composer, who I believe also only has one track, we have Nemesis, aka Andrew Wise. And like I said, I wasn't able to find any game credits, but he had a ton of demos from 93 to 98, like maybe 30 or 40, probably even more than that. I remember the list going pretty long. If you got any other info about him, I'd love to hear it, because I feel like Nemesis is also a name I've seen come up a few times.
No, member of ICE. He's an American composer. There's a lot of different demos he's done, but just a lot of different music that he's done. And so I was looking for stuff like anything recent. I couldn't find much. Did you come across any?
I didn't know.
Yeah, so sadly, no.
Oh well. His work here is definitely appreciated. We're going to get to his track, I think, towards the end of the show. But shall we move on to our next track, Brian?
Let's do it.
All right. This is Pentagonal Dreams, composed by Necros, or Andrew Sega.
That was Pentagonal Dreams, composed by Andrew Sega, also known as Necros, for Xixit on DOS.
It's that classic demoscene swing.
Dude, I really like this. This is my favorite track so far.
Yeah, me too. I really like it. Yeah. Andrew Sega is the guy who also wrote the Exuding Titleness track, which I also love quite a lot. So
yeah, that was good.
Yeah. Another 6-channel mod file, although he only used 5 channels for most of it. But
and the thing is too about the I don't think there's, it sounds really full. I don't think there's any reason to try to throw more at it. I mean, the percussion line, do you mind if we just listen to that percussion line real quick?
Yeah, sure.
I just really like that rhythm section. It's just not like this, a lot of, I wouldn't say like sceners specifically, but like, a lot of the times on the show we talk about musicians that really put, their heart and soul into stuff. And I feel like the percussion just does something so just for the track, and it gives it so much more like live kind of feeling. It's just a lot of fun to listen to. It gives you this kind of, this like swing, this bounce in your step.
I haven't been listening to anything you've been saying because I've had channels 1 and 2 soloed this entire time just listening. It's so good. You're right, though. I'm a little joking a little bit there, but it's true. Like, he pulls a lot of music out of those 2 percussion channels, and it really gives a whole lot of life to this track, and it's just, you can't help but bop your head along. It's so good. That
kind of like a little bit of like a cowbell and like a bottle, some really cool instruments in there, some really cool samples. So let's get into our next track here. Is there anything you want to say about Xixit before we keep going?
Not so much. I mean, it's an easy game to find. It's not too hard to play these days. I mean, the biggest advantage to playing Xixit today would be to play it with this music behind you, because you can find Columns clones everywhere. But, if you like this kind of music, it's not a bad way to spend 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes if you're, get super hooked on it.
Yeah. And because you can play it in the browser, you can play it at work, when nobody's looking, just...
That's true. If they have it blocked archive.org, you should be able to play it right there.
Well, actually, nobody should see you because you're probably working at home right now. So
that's true. Yeah, just work on your home computer. I did want to say one thing, though, which is I didn't really think too hard about the track order. I was literally just going alphabetical order from the zip file that I got. So, I probably could have gone a little bit differently, but it sounded good in that order, so I didn't feel like a reason to change it.
I was fine with it.
Yeah. So we got 2 more tracks, this one and then the closeout track.
Yeah, the next track we're going to play is from Kenny Chow, and this is Sacred Grounds from Xixit.
That was Sacred Grounds, composed by Kenny Cho, or C.C.Catch, for the game Xixit.
Not a super exciting track, but dang, if that isn't the best Columns music. It's just, wow, so airy and kind of wafty. And I really like this one. I mean, for the game especially, I think it just matches perfectly the Columns feeling.
Me too. It's mellow, it's triumphant, it's uplifting and positive. I mean, I feel like it doesn't have to be much more complicated, really. Like it's fine as it is. It's a great track. It captures the right mood. It's just exactly what I'd want out of this kind of game. Really.
Yeah. And it's funny. I like all the other tracks too. I mean, this one isn't like the best track. I just feel like for what it's trying to achieve, it really just has nailed it, I think. It's funny, the comments in the Scream Tracker file says made for Tom P. Tran and John H. Oman for their game Whoop Music 95, and then it says samples from an R8, an SC55, and 01 WFD, a bit here and a bit there. And then it says Kenny Chow's New York address in Elmhurst.
Yeah. So, you know, when I initially found this game, I was just like browsing for music on the web, and I initially thought it was literally just like a collection of demo scene tunes put together, but they were all written for this game. So they were clearly all friends and they knew each other, and this was intended for this end product. So it wasn't just like, what do we got lying around? They put some effort into this, and I really do appreciate it, because I feel like there's this kind of weird break between the demo scene as like tech demonstration and the game industry. And there's a few people that have made that transition, but it's not that many. So like I do kind of like this as a complete package.
Exactly like Harold Hearttooth.
Oh yeah, that I brought that up in our plugs, of course.
Oh, you did. I see it.
Patron saint of our podcast, Harold Hearttooth.
Oh man! So today we covered Xixit on the PC. This is a great find that you came across, Gene. I'm glad that you kind of nudged us to put this one out there. I really liked it. It was composed by Andrew Necros Sega, John Dahlquist Bjornsson, aka Mesonyx, Kenny C.C.Catch Chow, and Andrew Nemesis Wise. A lot of fun, and the soundtrack was really cool to explore.
It was, yeah. It's really what I think we need. It's mellow holiday times right now. We're right around the beginning of the new year, so let's start things off peacefully. And anyway, if you want to know more on the show, then check us out online at pixelatedaudio.com for show notes and the track list. We can also be found on Twitter at pixelatedaudio.
Yep, and on Discord, definitely join in and join the fun. There's a lot of great chatter always there. If you like the show, we really encourage you to leave feedback for us. This is the best way that we can judge how we're doing, and keeps us motivated to keep pushing on. So if you want to leave a comment on the website, or send us an email, or just message us on Discord, or even give us a rating on iTunes, that's super awesome. So everybody who has done so far, thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you again. I've been reading our YouTube comments. I've been glad to see a little bit more action there lately.
Which is strange, because, YouTube was always kind of like a second thought. We're like, we'll just put it up there. And we've been getting, a little handful of listens here and there. So I didn't know that was a viable platform for listening to a podcast, but sure.
However you listen to us, we definitely appreciate it. Comments, feedback.
Exactly. Mostly
positive, but if you've got some negative feedback, from time to time. Anyway, if you're new to our podcast and just want to hear more music from demo scene musicians and stuff like it, make sure to check out some of our past shows. Like we mentioned, favorite episode 125, Harold Hearttooth, patron saint of the show. It's who we live for. Right before that, we had episode 124 with Anders Svensson covering Alex 4. That was a really great show. Yeah. And going back a little bit further, we have episode 70 about Thomas DeTurt, who did write music for games, but it was very much in that kind of demo scene style, computer musician. I was not there for that show, but it's Much the same kind of thing, yeah.
That was one of the first shows I was trying to get you on for, too.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. I remember I was like texting you while I was like in the gym or something like that. I was like, hey, you want to come on this C64 episode? And like, But anyways, it was really fun because he messaged me like, I want to say, because I asked him if he wanted to be on the show, Thomas DeTurp. And he's like, no. And so I was like, oh, whatever. He listened to the show like a year later, and he's like, oh my God, this was like the best. Like, I couldn't believe you guys like talked about this. You should have asked me to be on. I'm like, I did, bro. I did. And he's like, no. So, yeah.
Hey, maybe we have him back on for another show. The interviews always bring such a life to them. You know, it's so even if we have a composer on that we've covered in the past, it doesn't mean we can't do it again, you know?
Yep. And if you want to listen to some really awesome demo scene goodness, take a listen to the Impulse Project. That's there's a link on the sidebar on our website. That's a show Ed and I do. We've done about a year because of COVID and everything, but we'll get back into it. So, but there's a lot of really great music there. We got about 40 episodes, so take a listen.
Yeah. And the track taking out the show is Visionary, composed by Andrew Wise, aka Nemesis. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you back for the next show in a little while.